Hello everybody, and today I'm reviewing the original Thor movie. So you're probably wondering, why am I reviewing this movie? I don't know, I want to do more MCU reviews. It's been a while, it's been a year, but anyway, I'm going to review Thor. So I might as well talk about my history with Thor. So I wasn't really into the character all that much when I was younger. I don't know, I saw him in some video games, cartoons. But it wasn't until I saw him as Chris Hemsworth as Thor. That's kind of where I fell in love with the character. I mean, he is cool in the show Avengers Assemble or Earth's Mightiest Heroes, but I'm not the biggest Thor fan. I do like the world of Asgard. I like how Thor's a god and that hammer, man, it looks super cool. And to see him get his own movie is honestly a surprise, since I never thought we'd see a Thor movie. When I think of superhero movies, I think of Spider-Man or something. But it's surprising that Thor has had 4 movies. That's more than the other actors. Spider-Man actors, he's constantly getting new actors to play the character. But Chris Hemsworth as Thor has always stayed the same. Well, I think there was another live action Thor in that Incredible Hulk show, but anyway, let's get into the movie. So Thor came out in 2011. That was probably 12 years ago. Time flies. And it's about Thor, son of Odin, who has been banished to planet Earth after proving his arrogancy against his father, and now he meets scientist Jane Foster, and he must find his way back to Asgard to take back the throne of being king. So, I think what really makes me like the Thor movies is it has it explores the cosmic side of the MCU. I know we get more of that in Guardians of the Galaxy, but I feel the Thor movies were an early start to it. We're seeing Asgard, we're seeing other worlds, this one ice planet, which is at the beginning of the movie, of the monologue Odin gives, played by the legendary actor Anthony Hopkins. And I just actually do like the backstory. I know I kind of mentioned it earlier, but the backstory of Thor is I think is well done, even in this. Because in the comics, I think in the 60s, it was a man named Donald Blank who carried a stick that would turn him into Thor. Then apparently the real Thor was exiled or something. I don't know, I had to look it up. But in this movie, Thor is just a full-on god. I think later in the movie, we get a joke about Donald Blank when we meet Jane Foster. So the movie does start off with Thor and Loki as little kids, and that's his brother, by the way. And we do get some plot twists about Loki later in the movie. But as this goes on, after we see the flashback of Odin on the planet where the frost giants come from, which are the villains of the movie, which are actually cool villains, but not my favorite. But anyway, we get to see Thor as he has become king of Asgard. And I gotta say, his costume, I might as well talk about the costume. It actually looks awesome. He looks like how we see him in the comic books. He only wears the helmet in this movie. Apparently Chris Hemsworth have said in an interview a long time ago that he just didn't like that helmet because it was very bothering towards him. I honestly prefer he didn't have the helmet. He actually looks really good with that blonde hair. Thor has long hair and then he has short hair in the third movie. But anyway, as this is going on, Thor is very, we can say, arrogant. He is very thrust for energy. He wants to crave power against the frost giants after they snuck into Asgard to steal a weapon that Odin hid in his fortress. And what basically Thor does next is he teams up with Loki, played by Tom Hiddleston, and his Viking friends, and they go to the frost giant world, and they get into a huge fight quarrel with them which leaves the Thor being so arrogant that he gets one of his friends injured, and then Thor has to go back to Asgard because he's rescued by his father. And then on what happens next after Thor just caused this big ruckus is that Thor is now about to be banished from Asgard. And earlier in the movie, Thor did have a talk with Loki, and Thor is also shown to have a temper. Like, he literally throws a table down. So that proves his arrogance. And as Thor is now no longer worthy to hold his hammer, Mjolnir. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say it. And that's where it leads to him getting taken to Earth. He doesn't have his cape anymore. He just doesn't have his little costume anymore. He's now sent. But we also get this one backstory of Loki. Here's the plot twist about Loki. He is revealed to be a frost giant. And he's been adopted this whole time. Honestly, it made sense since, I don't know, the two aren't actually related. They're just like, they are brothers. Like, I would say they're adopted brothers. But like, I think the reason why they wanted to have Loki be a frost giant was because he wants to find a way to crave power. That's what leads to his villainous antics, which leads to like how he is in this movie to later in the first Avengers movie. But then, as Thor is sent to Earth, he meets with Eric Selba, Darcy Lewis, and Jane Foster, played by Natalie Portman, Padme herself. And I do like the scene where Thor is just like, I am Thor, and you will dare stand against me, and then Darcy just tases him, and then he passes out. They take him to the hospital, and Thor is just, I don't know, because he's never been to Earth. He doesn't know how people interact on Earth. And, like, Jane has to, like, explain how they met him. They said they just met him, even though they ran him over. And Thor literally gets ran over twice in this. It's meant to be funny. And Thor is literally going crazy at the hospital that he has to be restrained. I think he does break out. That's where he breaks out in the hospital and gets run over again. And I think the movie kind of starts to slow her down a bit when Thor is now hanging out with Jane, Eric, who are all revealed to be scientists studying, I guess, mythology or something. Yeah, we can tell they're scientists because as Thor is hanging out with them, Thor's hammer has landed somewhere wherever Thor is at. I think it might be, I don't know what state they're in, but anyway, the hammer lands somewhere, and we see Agent Coulson, who we saw, I think, in Iron Man 1, yeah. And they're trying to lift the hammer, but only one can be worthy. And even Odin said it himself when he was talking to the hammer and froze it in the realm of Earth. And then we do get a Stan Lee cameo. Rest in peace, Stan. He literally tries to move the hammer with his truck, and it doesn't go well. Everyone's trying to lift it, and yeah. But I think the scientists the government people are starting to figure out what Jane is up to when she discovered Thor, I guess. And so they take her scientist equipment, and we get this running joke about an iPod. And this proves how old this movie is, because back in 2011, people were using iPods. People don't use iPods anymore. I mean, seriously, do you people use iPods anymore? Anyway, that's off topic, but anyway, I think the rest of the movie is like Thor trying to get his hammer back. But because he's unworthy, he can't lift it. And we do get a Hawkeye cameo. And I bet people didn't notice that since Hawkeye never gets so much appreciation. This is technically Hawkeye's first appearance in the MCU, which is nice. But Thor does break into this the scientist place, like the government place, and he is just tearing through guards, and he's ready, and we can just see how ripped Chris Hemsworth is. He literally tries to lift the hammer, but because he's unworthy, he can't lift it, and then he's captured. But then he has a little meeting with Loki, who has somehow used his magic to get to Earth. But I don't think that's actually him. It's just an illusion of him. And what's basically been going on with Loki is like he's becoming jealous of Thor. Like he doesn't like how Thor is like king, and he feels he's never been truly loved by his dad and his mom. And they try to tell him like, "Oh, we love you, Loki." But then once he finds out he's adopted, because that's where he starts to take a turn, as he decided to betray Asgard and try to rule the throne himself, while Odin is in some isotopes state. And I forgot to mention Heimdall, played by Idris Elba. Yeah, Idris Elba is really good as Heimdall. I don't know, I prefer him in the Suicide Squad movie, but he's really good as Heimdall. Like, I like his friendship with Thor, and it was sad when, spoilers, he dies in Infinity War after that long friendship. And it feels like Heimdall's been part of the MCU for a while, and he made a cameo in Thor: Love and Thunder. But he is frozen. I actually really like the scene where Heimdall is frozen. Like, it was a nice visual effect. And as Loki's trying to take over Asgard, I don't want to sound like weird, but like I can understand why Loki's upset, but I don't agree with his actions. Like, I don't agree with him trying to destroy New York or trying to kill everyone he's met in his life in this movie. But Loki being upset because he feels he's never been loved, I can understand that. But I don't agree with his decision making. I know I just repeated myself, but anyway, Thor and Loki have a little talk, but I think Thor eventually does get out of his little captured area, and he meets up with Eric Selba, and they have a little drink together. They're partying, and they return home, and that's where Thor and Jane have a little nice moment. He introduces her to the 9 realms, and she seems interested, I guess, in it. But as this is going on, the next day, Thor's Viking friends are sent to go rescue Thor, and they are super excited to meet him. Yeah, Thor's Viking friends, I never really got into those characters, and I found out Ray Stevenson played one of them. I don't know his name, I'm sorry, but Ray Stevenson, rest in peace. And yeah, you were great for your time in the MCU and many other Marvel projects you were in, even though he was the Punisher as well, and his next Marvel movie was the Thor movies. But he reminds me of, like, I don't know, a character you'd see in the Hobbit movies. But anyway, Thor reunites with his Viking friends. They're all excited, but it's unfortunately cut short when what we see next is Loki has sent the Destroyer to take down Thor. I first time saw the Destroyer in the Lego Marvel Superheroes game, where you fight him when you're Wolverine, Human Torch, Cap, Thor in the Asgard level. That's a fun level, by the way, when you're on the Rainbow Bridge. But anyway, the Destroyer, he's quite tough, and I think he ends up killing Thor, and you think Thor's gone. Nope, of course not. Thor has finally learned to not be so arrogant by the people he meets with, like Jane Foster. He develops a good bond with her because of it, and that's what sparks, I guess, his worthiness back. As Thor pulls out the hammer, he's back, and then he's in full costume again, and he's able to just destroy that Destroyer and save all his friends. And I think the rest of the movie is where Thor finally has a final duel with Loki. He finds out what his plan is. He's been jealous of Thor. He just wants the throne to do it for his father, but he's really just doing it for himself. But then Thor, Loki have this duel in the bridge of Asgard, and they end up breaking down the Rainbow Bridge, which looks amazing, by the way. But Thor ends up being Loki, and they're about to fall off the bridge, but they're saved by Odin, who has woken up from his sleep. And that's where Loki tries to be like, I did it for you, father. But Odin's kind of just like, no. But then Loki decides to kill himself. He lets go for being saved from his dad, and he falls to his death. And we think that's the end of Loki. But this comes up with the trend where Loki dies and he comes back. Yeah, that's something. And so I think the movie ends with Thor remaining on Asgard. Loki has secretly infiltrated the S.H.I.E.L.D. base in the post-credit scene, which leads to Avengers, the first movie. And Ford, I think he had to say goodbye to Jane. He did. They did have like a last-minute kiss before he went off. Yeah, and Thor seems to be doing okay. He just misses Jane, and that's Thor. I forgot to mention the one villain who was in this movie. I honestly forgot he was in this movie. That's probably the issue with the MCU, is that they kind of have weak villains. Like, there's some villains that are very forgettable. But there's also some really good villains like Thanos, Loki, Killmonger, etc. But we did get this one villain named Luffy. He's like a frost giant. I think he was the one that was causing this whole war against them and the frost giants in the first place. But I think his character's killed off. Yeah, by Loki or something. I probably missed something, but anyway, that's Thor. Thor is definitely I think it's a solid movie for Thor. I do like Chris Hemsworth as his character. I think the movie does slow down a bit, but makes it kind of drag a little, but that's a little nitpick I had. There were some forgettable villains, but I think Loki is the highlight of this movie, and he's a bigger highlight in Avengers. That's where everyone fell in love with Tom Hiddleston. But anyway, I don't know what the next review I'll do. I don't know if you people want me to review Avengers. If anyone sees this video, but I probably give Thor like a 7 out of 10. It's a fun movie for the Phase 1. Majority are into Phase 1 movies. I do like the first Iron Man. Incredible Hulk's not that bad. Even it's incredibly underappreciated. Yeah, Iron Man 2, nah. And 4 is decent. The next movie was Captain America: The First Avenger, but I've already reviewed that a year ago. But anyway, I don't know what the next review will be. But anyway, thanks for watching, and see you guys next time.